And so for each of the avatars, which are line of gurus, it's a line of avatars. And so for each of them, they've been where we're at right now. It's very important to remember they're simply souls who have achieved over time, over many incarnations, perfection, and have now in that perfection come back to bless the world with their understanding. And so for us, our line of gurus with the path of self-realization begins with Babaji and Christ. And Christ comes to Babaji and says, my followers have forgotten about inner communion, and they do good works, but they're not, the inner communion part is not there, which is vital for understanding how to even do good works. And so Babaji, in 1861, begins that mission that he knows. He and Christ work for the salvation of this world, this planet. And so he starts things by, in 1861, drawing Lahiri Mahashai. Lahiri has lived as a householder and is suddenly, he's a bookkeeper for the Indian government, or the British government actually at that time. And he's drawn to Raniket. He gets an assignment to go to the Himalayas. And from there, he meets Babaji. Babaji incarnates before him, and as a young man, looking very much like Lahiri himself, and initiates him into Kriya Yoga. But I wanted to read, because these things happen in a certain context, and the autobiography is full of beautiful quotes that the dialogue between Babaji and Lahiri. And Babaji says at this time, he says, the cries of many bewildered worldly men and women have not fallen unheard on the eyes of the great ones, the ears of the great ones. You have been chosen, Lahiri, to bring spiritual solace through Kriya Yoga to numerous earnest seekers. And in addition, because of Lahiri's interplay with Babaji, he says, you may give Kriya to all who humbly ask for help. This is a big thing. It's a huge deal that Kriya is being reintroduced into the world, the highest technique that's talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, and that it's now available to all who humbly ask for help. And then so that happens in 1861. And we think, okay, what's next? Well, 33 years later, so Lahiri has two assignments from Babaji. He is to give Kriya Yoga to all who humbly ask for help, and he is also to continue to live his life in this exalted state of a totally free being among people. So he's to continue. He's a married man, he has 2 children, he's got a wife, he has a job as an accountant, he is civically involved in creating a high school. He does many things, but this goes on for decades, over 33 years. And you know, maybe we're thinking, why does it take so long? But I think it's good to remember, in 1861, in this country, we were just beginning the Civil War. It was a low time. We were not in the consciousness, the spiritual consciousness, to be able to receive such a visit from Babaji, and to have someone here who could really carry out that divine mission. The consciousness wasn't there yet, and the consciousness is everything. There has to be enough of an elevated consciousness for an avatar to be able to come in and begin a mission such as Babaji and Lahiri at that time began. And so where was the place where that could begin? India. And so because even in India and even with the British, I was very touched again, and every time I read it, I'm very touched by the fact that in Lahiri's office, his British superintendent says, "Ecstatic Babu." This is how he addresses, a British man addresses Lahiri. He says, "Ecstatic Babu, I know you're not an ordinary man, but my wife is ill in England, critically ill, and I'd like to get some word from her, and you're promising to be able to get word for me?" Because Lahiri disappears behind a door or something and comes back and says, "Don't worry, she'll be fine." And the man says, I know you're no ordinary man, but is this really real? But he has, the British man has enough of an opening of consciousness, and he realizes that Lahiri is special. And so he in fact, is able to heal the man's wife, and she comes later on. But that opening of consciousness must be there. But in 1894, in January, Lahiri now has a disciple, Swami Sri Yukteswar. He's not a Swami yet, and Swami Sri Yukteswar makes a point of that. I'm not a Swami yet, but I've received Kriya initiation from Lahiri Mahashaya. He's my guru. And so from that point, Lahiri strongly suggests that he go to the Kumbh Mela in Allahabad that year, in 1894, in January. And so Sri Yukteswar goes, and his beginning account of that, he says, "I really wasn't very happy to be there. It was chaos and all this stuff going on, and it seemed like a lot of people were pretending to be sadhus and they really weren't, and he just had a pretty low understanding or vision of what he was seeing there." And then right at that point, a man approaches him and he says, "A saint is calling you, come with me." And Sri Yukteswar says, "Well, who is this?" He said, "Come and you'll see." And again, the exchanges are very, very sweet and important for us to remember and understand. When Sri Yukteswar comes, he sees this pretty highly evolved, even from the very beginning. He recognizes this is a highly evolved soul. And Babaji says to him, "Greetings, Swamiji." And Sri Yukteswar right away says, "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not a Swami." And Babaji says, "Those who I am inspired to greet in this way, to name in this way, do not cast it off." And then Sri Yukteswar bows before him full out and realizes what a high soul he is. But Babaji says to him then, he says, "I saw that you are interested in the West," an opening, "as well as the East. I felt the pangs of your heart." He's saying this to Sri Yukteswar. "I felt the pangs of your heart, broad enough for all men. That is why I summoned you here." So Sri Yukteswar has that already. And this is when Babaji, again, has assignments for these avatars who are now coming to him. And he asks Sri Yukteswar to write the holy science, to write a book that will show the underlying unity between East and West, the scriptures of both of those. And then Babaji says, "The vibrations there in the West of many spiritually seeking souls come flood-like to me." That's all of us, not yet incarnated, but all of us. And then he says the second part to Sri Yukteswar. He says, "I will send you a disciple to disseminate the yoga teachings in the West." And so Sri Yukteswar, this is 1894. Yogananda arrives on Sri Yukteswar's doorstep as a disciple around 1910. It's a long time later. Yogananda's only a year old at this point. So, but I just wanted to show the progression and how long it takes for, again, the consciousness of people to evolve, to be ready to accept higher teachings, to be ready. It's not, boom, they come and then it happens. It's an evolution. And in the beginning, when Lahiri is giving Kriya, he won't allow anybody to advertise it. He just lets it happen very naturally. But it takes 33 years for that to evolve to a point where the second phase comes in. And then Sri Yukteswar, I assume, is in Calcutta. He has properties in Sri Rampur and in Puri. And so around 1910 is when Yogananda, now also seeking his guru, and he's had visions of him, but he hasn't found him yet, finally meets Sri Yukteswar in Benares. Sri Yukteswar is there visiting his mother, and they meet. And then it's a wonderful meeting. But then they finally come together. And Yogananda, again, Sri Yukteswar's assignment is to train this disciple to bring the teachings of yoga from India to the West and to America specifically. So 10 years go by and Yogananda is really trained by Sri Yukteswar. Swami Kriyananda said one of the things that he noticed about Yogananda that he wrote about in the Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, a biography, it's one of his salient characteristics, is he said, I never saw him in the least bit affected by what anyone said to him, about him, or said to him. Not in the least bit affected. There was nobody there to be affected. But also Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda relates this, worked on him, really trained him, really brought him to the point where he could withstand coming to America. And then in the last couple of years of being with Sri Yukteswar, Yogananda also starts a school and learns how to take on some more organizational activities. Then in 1920, as we all know, he sails for America, and it took him 2 months to finally arrive in Boston, in the harbor there. And then Yogananda as an avatar again, arriving on the shores of America. What did he bring to us? Because it's an incredible thing for an avatar to be coming to the materialistic West. I mean, even Yogananda says, I was really afraid of, would I have the strength to withstand the materialism of the West that everyone knows about at that point in the world. But he goes, and he brings to America, in my understanding, 3 things. 1, he brings the power of an avatar. This is a special dispensation that he brings to America. And this is very, very important for all of us to remember. I know we've heard all these stories and these things before, but since today's topic is the mystery of the avatar, I just want to emphasize again, and Swami Kriyananda, a great direct disciple of this avatar, recommended and really strengthened this understanding for us. This is a special dispensation. It comes with the power of an avatar, his consciousness, his love, his joy, his wisdom. The power of that can move mountains. The mountains of our ignorance, the mountains of our karma, everything that we feel even today that hold us back from being one with God. We say these words, one with God, and all of that. This is a special dispensation. And Yogananda, during his lifetime, said to his disciples, you should all try to achieve being a Jivan Mukta in this lifetime. Swami Kriyananda heard him say this a number of times. Well, Jivan Mukta means you're totally inwardly free and you have some past karma to work out. So from where we're all at, we might think, who, me? My meditations are okay and, I'm doing okay. But please keep in mind, this is a special dispensation and it has the power to move mountains spiritually for each one of us. Please do keep that in mind and shoot for Jivan Mukta. Understand what it means. And in your meditations, really try to achieve that. Try to understand that deeper. And know that Yogananda is there supporting you, more than supporting you, rooting for you. It's a very special lifetime. So a special dispensation with the power and the glory of an avatar who came specifically not only to the West, but to America. Landed in Boston, spent a few years there, traveled all over, got to know America, and then made his home, where? In Los Angeles, California. Because that's where his heart called him to. He knew that was the place to start from, his mission. So then what else did Yogananda bring? That power. But he brought the techniques and the ways to actually do this, the attitudes, how to live a daily life as a Kriya yogi. He brought Kriya Yoga, yes, which is an incredibly powerful technique. It goes right to the heart of the matter of why we're not free. We go into the spine, we move energy up and down, and we become free over time. It all takes effort and time, but he brought Kriya Yoga, and he brought the attitudes of how to act, how to be in the world and not of it, how to do this. And so I remember when I was coming on the path, I thought, I need to know how to meditate. I need to know how to live a spiritual life. It must be past memories, but that's what Yogananda brought. And in addition, the third element that he brought was world brotherhood colonies. He brought a way of life to bring all of that into a community, a spiritual community, an intentional spiritual community, which he called world brotherhood colonies. And so this whole line of gurus, Christ and Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and then Yogananda coming to bless us in the West, in America, but really to bless the entire world with this consciousness of, wow, we're spiritual beings. And as Yogananda said, the time for knowing God has come. Go forward in that way. I just want to say that in a very loving, joyful, dynamic, encouraging way. Don't be afraid of whatever happens, and know that you can achieve spiritual greatness, spiritual evolution, spiritual consciousness of the highest kind in this lifetime. We've worked millions of lifetimes to come to this one. Don't let it go by without doing your level best to really take advantage of this line of avatars that have come to bless our lives and really change the consciousness of the entire world. Om.